All right, we are on page 3 of the review. It begins with number 12, which says, I paid $9.75 every week for my school lunches. If I want to pay in advance and pay like all like 12 weeks into the future, how much will that be? So, I've got 975 that's every week, and I want to pay for 12 weeks. I don't have the total, do I? So it's not a division problem like those from the other video were. I want to find the total. I do have the amount for like 1 week, and I do know that I want 12 weeks worth. So option 1 is to go 975 plus 975 plus 975. But I would have to do that 12 times, correct? Because I want to pay for 12 weeks. Well, instead of just adding 12 times, did you hear that word times in there? Instead of adding 12 times, I'll just times by 12. So I'll go 975 times by, oh, I'm multiplying decimals now. How do I multiply by decimals? The trick is just to kind of ignore that it's even a decimal problem and just to set it up like normal. So I'm going to even like, nyeh, nyeh, pretend like it's 975 times 12. Okay, so I don't need to line up decimals. I definitely don't want to have to do this type of problem because this would take me forever. I'd have to times everything by 0, add a 0, and then times everything again by 0, and then add 2 zeros and times everything. It's just not pretty. So do not line up decimals. You could get the right answer, but there's a lot of mistakes that could happen. So instead, just ignore the decimals when we're multiplying by decimals. We'll get back to the decimals at the end. But for the beginning, just solve it like normal. So the way I'll solve it by normal is by timesing everything by 2. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19. Okay, then I'm going to times everything by 1. But this is kind of actually like 10. Actually, it is 10, not kind of. It is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12, right? So when I times anything by 10, I know I can just put a 0 at the end. And now I can times everything just by 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 9 is 9. And I'm going to add that up, and I get 10, 11, wait, 10 plus 1 is 11. Okay, now is when I can focus on the decimals. So if we go back to the problem, we times 975 and 12. Well, there are 2 numbers behind that decimal, and the invisible decimal there doesn't have anything behind it, right? So there's only 2 numbers behind the decimal, which means I am also going to have my answer have 2 numbers behind the decimal as well. So I end up with $117.00. Now, honestly, 0 cents is the same thing as nothing, right? So I'm okay if I even just erase the and 0 cents and just say that I will pay $117 if I want to pay for 12 weeks of my lunches. Number 13 says the distance around Salt Hollow Park is 4/100ths of a mile, or 4/10ths, right? Because like I was saying, the zeros at the end don't mean anything. So I could just say 4/10ths. Okay. Derek rode his unicycle 5/10ths of that distance on Saturday before he fell down. How far did he ride? We've got to decide, are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Now, let me give you a hint that I've tried to teach you this lesson, this chapter, and that is if I have the word of, that is often a word that means times. So if I take the 0.40, honestly, again, I'm just going to get rid of that 0 and just do 0.4, and I times it by 0.5, that will give me the distance that he rode, because he had the 4th of a mile, 4/10ths of a mile, and then he only rode 5/10ths of that. So we got to take half of it or 5/10 of it. And we're going to times those together and get 20. Now, here's another example where we have numbers behind the decimal. There's two numbers behind the decimal, so we're going to have our answer be two numbers behind the decimal as well. And we can rewrite this as 2/10. We really don't need that 0 at the end, do we? 2/10 of a mile. So Derek went 2/10 of a mile on his unicycle before falling. Not bad. Okay. Now this last problem is a family that is going on a trip, and they stopped at the Maverick at the gas station, whatever, to fill up before. Okay. All right, so they're at Maverick and they need to buy gasoline so they can get to wherever they're going. They need snacks, of course. Oh, they're probably going to the beach. They need some beach toys, and they definitely forgot their sunblock, and they definitely need sunblock. So how much is that gasoline going to be? Well, they're getting 14.1 gallons, and it's $3.70 each gallon. So they need to times that together to get the total. Now I, again, am going to get rid of that 0 to make it a little bit easier. So I'll have 14.1 times 3.7. Now, did my decimals line up? Yeah. Does it really matter? No. We can completely ignore those decimals until the end. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. Now we're going to times everything by, whoa, you see it just like went away? By basically 30, right? So we're going to put a 0 here. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. And 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. I'm going to add that up, and that gives me 7, 11, 10, 12. Okay, these numbers here, but I'm going to remember this was a multiply decimal problem. So I'm going to look back here up at my decimals and see that there are two numbers behind the decimals. So I'm going to have two numbers behind the decimal in my answer as well. And because it's money, we're going to label it $52.17. Awesome. So let's go on to snacks. Looks like we bought 8 snacks, and all of the snacks were the same price, $1.59. So let's figure out how much that would be. Now I could go $1.59 plus $1.59 plus $1.59 plus $1.59 8 times, right? But mathematicians have created multiplication, which makes it 1,000,000 times easier to just multiply instead of adding over and over and over again. So 8 times 9 is 72. 8 times 5 is 40. Plus 7 is 47. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 11. And now I'll times, oh, I'm done timesing. So I just need to look and see that there are two numbers behind the decimal. There are now two numbers behind my answer, behind the decimal in my answer, and the snacks cost $11.72. Beach toys, we bought 4 beach toys. Those beach toys only cost $1.39. So when I times them by 4, I get 36, 12, 13, 14, 15. 4 plus 1 is 5. 2 decimals behind, 2 decimals, 2 numbers behind the decimal, 2 numbers behind the decimal. There we go. So the beach toys cost $5.56. And the final one is sunblock. Now you might be wondering, Mrs. Manson, where's the work for sunblock? That is because I only bought 1 thing of sunblock. Do you really need to go $9.99 times 1? Or do you just know that 1 sunblock is going to be $9.99? Okay, that's why I didn't give you any space for that, because you're smarter than that. All right, that is page 3 of the review.